Welcome back to the Real Revenue Show, where we discuss real business concepts that'll help you build and scale any business model. We're your hosts. I'm Malcolm Bowser. This is Andre Trust, and we have a special guest in the building. I'm going to let Andre introduce him.
Yeah. So what's going on, Malk? First of all, for a couple of episodes now, I've been talking about my partner all the time. Like I usually reference him every episode,
Yes.
and I got a message I think that was like, "Hey, like who is your partner?" You never really, because we have different roles. So I'm excited, like really super excited to have my partner who I'll let him introduce himself shortly. But this is my business partner. We've been partners for probably like the past 4 or 5 years, just nonstop. It's been a phenomenal journey, and during that time I've learned so much. Not only a partner to me, but has become like like an older brother to me, somebody that I look up to as well, not just from a standpoint of business, but like as a man to man respect. I really respect him. So now I have the opportunity to introduce my business partner, Tellers Pollard.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
Good, man. We're good. Glad you are here with us, man. And yeah, Dre's been he's been wanting you to come on the show since we started the show. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you're here.
no, I appreciate it. And first off, I really like what you guys are doing. The concepts that you are talking about is much needed. Revenue and talking about different ways to grow and scale and all the things y'all have been covering over the past couple of weeks. Is much needed, and I'm excited and honored to be here. So just a little bit of background about myself. Like once again, my name's Tellers, 13-year Marine Corps veteran. I spent my career in the Marine Corps and got to the rank of Chief One Officer. For those of you who don't know the rank structure, as a Chief One Officer, in order to get that covenant title, that's basically saying you are the subject matter expert in your field, or you're like essentially like the go-to guy. So I started off as an enlisted Marine, worked my way up, got that rank, and in my job in the Marine Corps, I typically managed a aviation aeronautical warehouse, kind of like running a mini, or not a mini, like a large scale like Amazon operation. So
Got
we
you.
ensured that parts and systems were created to make sure like the aircraft were flying and meeting their schedules and stuff like that. And then it was heavy logistics involved. We had to have line items and school SKUs. There was delivery drivers. It was a whole thing, and I was able to run that successfully. I parlayed that into different business opportunities. So I met Andre probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, no, it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And just kind of had a like-minded vision. We both, had the entrepreneurial spirit, and we decided that real estate, which everyone knows, that's like a high margin business. We started to do like private investing and things like that. Parlayed that into a real estate company together, where we had about 8 agents at the high, and then we wanted to really control the process of the client experience. So that kind of led to us getting into the mortgages, and we started doing mortgages with real estate. That way, we can just control the whole client experience. We did a slew of other businesses, and currently all those things are still operating today. And then as of right now, we have a full scale restaurant that we operate. And on the daily basis, we have about 45 to 50 employees that we actively manage right now. So it's been a good role. For me, I'm an executor. So our partnership kind of aligned with, him just being like, hey, I'm a strategic planner. I'm a visionary. I can put any idea together. I can think large scale. I can put plans in place. In my background, my entire life has just been execution. Let's just get it done. And I always joke. For me, I like to be in the complete point of friction at all times, like just literally. So whatever it is, it could be the most difficult point of any process or any thing that's going on. Like place me there. That's where I want to be. That's where I thrive. And that. And so him having that background of the visionary, me being the execution type guy, it just kind of worked out, and it led to years of success so far, and many more.
What's been kind of cool is he mentioned that we met inside of the Marine Corps. We were going to train at the same school, and we ended up getting to the same unit. So it's funny because, you know, he's running the entire warehouse, and guess who's running the finances for the warehouse?
Oh wow.
Right. So I'm running the finances for the warehouse, and it's like, it's in tandem. So he's downstairs running all the logistics, getting thousands and thousands and thousands of parts out daily. And I'm on the back end, like, okay, we need a budget X, we need to do this, we financially we got to be in this role, and it's like, all
Right.
right, well, and we both had an amazing time in the Marine Corps, loved it. It's done so much for our lives, but it had to spark that conversation of like, okay, we're running a almost $200 million company essentially. Why
Right.
not do that on our own and see what can kind of go from there?
So first of all, I feel like there should be a study done on how many entrepreneurs and CEOs come out of the military, because like y'all are getting like real life training in there, and then by the time you get to something in the outside private sector, like this is nothing. Like I can do this in my sleep. So y'all should look into something by doing something about that, because I think that's mad interesting. I didn't realize until like just now, until Tellers was like talking about his role in the Marines and how it directly translates into what y'all are doing now. I really didn't realize it. And Dre, you've been my friend forever, so until just now, which is crazy. But we as we get to we're like a few weeks out from 2022, and people always have these New Year's resolutions and things like that, but none of that gets done unless you execute, right? And tell us you called yourself an executor, and Andre he says that about you all the time. So like, tell our audience like what that means to you, and try to like, people have like different areas of business and things like that, but what does that mean to you as just a general term?
So before you jump in, Malk, I do want to preface it, right? And just for like the new listeners that are coming in so that they kind of understand, right?
Right.
Tellers and I, it's funny because we we're going to talk about partnerships even more and how to do that in its own separate entity. But over years, Tellers and I kind of like the Goku and Vegeta fusion. That's been kind of like the terms of how we've come together. But fundamentally, we're very different people, right? We're very similar in how we think because we've been together for the past 4 to 5 years nonstop. So it's natural. But overall, we're very different people. Like, I am not a high level executor. I can execute. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sell myself short, but that's not my role. That's not something that I enjoy being a part of. I can get it done, but I don't deem utility from that.
Got you.
Right? Where I deem utility from being in a private room and being able to strategize, put the entire plan together. And I get to, luckily, just luck of the draw, I get to have a phenomenal, partner that I can hand that plan to. And that's where he comes in, and it's like, yo, this is what I find utility in, is bringing to life something that was on paper, that was in our mind, and all of a sudden now it's here.
Got you.
So I'll let you jump in now, but I wanted to kind of give for our new listeners kind of like a background on we're very different, even though we're aligned in a lot of ways.
Got you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because just because you have a strength in something doesn't mean you can't do anything else. It's one of those things where you kind of understand where you excel the most at, and then luckily if you find a partner or you find a situation where you can align yourself with someone who you can have them complement your strengths, and you know what I mean, and then it just kind of goes from there. So
Got you.
but that was a good point, because just having that number one skill, or trying to be like a jack of all trades, is like where people kind of make the mistake. So, but to get back to your original question in terms of execution, it's funny because, like I said earlier, my personality, I just like to be in situations where I'm in the point of friction. But I think one thing it kind of boils down to is the mindset that no matter what's put in front of you, you can get it done. So
Right.
that's kind of step one. So what I always like to say, and I say it a lot, is I look at execution, or I look at life as just a series of repeatable, executable tasks. That's it. When you get up, when you brush your teeth, when you put your shoes on, you drive in the car, it's all just tasks that are all executable. So if life is a series of executable tasks, then that means that then no matter what it is, it can get accomplished, whether it be accomplished by you or someone else, or you utilize the resources from someone else or some technology. You should be able to get it done, because life is just an ongoing series of executable tasks. So that's always been kind of like my mindset as I progressed in life is like no matter what's put in front of me, it can be accomplished, it can be achieved because it's nothing more than another executable task that just we have to get done. And some of those are going to be more difficult than others. Obviously, I get that. But once you have the mindset to like, okay, it's put in front of me, I'm going to solve it. And if I don't know how to at that very moment in time, I'm going to go figure it out. But a lot of that really revolves around having a structure. So once you have the correct mindset, there's principles and fundamentals that every time a new task come up, you have to put in place. And
Like,
I call that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna ask to expound on that. Like,
Oh
which
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah.
Before you even dive into that, so it's funny because I'm super happy. So for our new listeners who haven't gotten a chance to listen to our other episodes yet, I want you to go back to episode 1, right, where I'm talking about planning and getting things into the proper tools and the proper places, right? Now you get to see the opposite side, right? Of like, here's the strategic setting it all up, but now here is how those things that you put into the calendar,
Right.
that you put into the steps, here's how they actually get executed in an efficient manner. So I definitely want all the new listeners go back to episode 1 and use these in tandem because it'll definitely help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and to get back, you said specifically how or what does that framework look like? So, number one, execution, it has to have structure and it has to have or has to be grounded in some disciplines that are true to who you are as a person. If not, then it's going to make your performance, of the task difficult at best, impossible at worst. So there's a quote by Benjamin Franklin. If you fail to plan, you are literally just planning to fail. So for me, when it comes to execution, it has to start with creating a plan that has structure, right? So that's step one. And so for me, I have five philosophy or five pillars of execution that I like to execute on no matter what comes up. So step one is always going to be grounded on establishing goals and outcomes, or essentially backwards planning. So once you have a task, no matter what it is, let's say you want to sell a specific product, or you want to reach a certain number of sales, or you want to have a certain amount of revenue, you have to establish your goals and you have to establish the outcome. Right now, once you do that, then it allows you from giving things your attention that don't matter at that time. For example, I think when we had set the goal to open our restaurant within 90 days or less, right? That's insane. But that tight timeline, that tight timeline required massive amounts of structure. So when we build it out in phases, right? So phase one, that's going to be organizational structure, setting up your LLCs, getting your health permits, coordinating, different documents to make sure you're legit, right? So phase three, that's like, hey, what color do we want to make the furniture? What type of art do we want to have in the restaurant? So in phase one, where we're trying to essentially do all the administrative processes, should we even be mentioning things about what kind of chairs do we want?
Right.
What color? What do we want the color scheme? And in fact, if I hear anyone bring that up, it's going to be an issue. You know what I'm saying? Like we're in phase one right now, and
Right.
so someone has to toe the line to ensure that every phase of the plan is executed properly, and that can't be done unless you first have your set standard of goals and outcomes to know where you're going, and you start your planning from the end, and you work your way back, and then you build those phases along the way.
Because I think a lot of people don't put emphasis on that,
Right.
right?
So
Whereas that
no,
I'm
go ahead,
listening.
go ahead. No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Nah, that's something that that matters a lot. That backwards planning,
Right.
it should automatically be done,
Yeah,
right? And as the dude who's like responsible for a lot of the planning, it's like that's where we automatically start at. We don't start anywhere else. We don't start with visions. We don't start with whatever. We start with, okay, what does this place need to be in order for a win to occur at
Got
the
you.
highest level? Right? Like, and that includes removing ourselves, having systems in place, understanding the staff, like all of these things that don't get mentioned because when people start their businesses, they don't start with the fact that they shouldn't be in it.
absolutely.
Right? They start the business, okay, like I'm the critical vulnerability, or I'll mention that later. but like I'm the person, I'm the focal point, I'm the X. We start the business where we're not even involved in it, because that's how a super successful business is ran, where the founders aren't tainting the business
Right.
essentially by overstepping or being there, or putting too much into place.
Got you. So tell us. I don't want you to. I don't want you to lose where you were at in explaining your framework. But I have a question to ask. Right. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
um, you seem like very disciplined in having, like you said, your framework and your principles laid out before, like as you are executing and things like that. And as you said, if somebody is thinking ahead, that kind of would throw you off, and that's a problem. So how do you deal with the guy next to you who is this big visionary who always is thinking about the next thing? How do you calm that down? Like, no, 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 we're doing this. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's funny because that comes up a lot. That comes up a lot. But I think what in a partnership, one of the number one things you have to do is be able to establish trust.
Right.
So once trust is established, then you can pretty much kind of tell when you're outside of your like left and right lateral limits. And so if I trust you, for example, to handle the finances or handle the plan, then you should trust me to handle the portion of execution. So if it comes to a point where I'm like, hey bro, like we gotta stay on course. The trust has been built up enough to understand body language, mannerisms, and get the context clues and know like, all right, this is one of those moments where I gotta let him lead the ship, and just kind of follow along, and that goes both ways, and so I think it like once you establish trust and have strong amount of trust, then you can operate like that where you can make corrections along the way. But there is times where I got to pull them down from the sky. Hold on, bro.
But one of the things too that I
Yeah.
think works, and I've mentioned this, and I'm gonna continue to mention it, right? It's me and him spend so much time on the planning phase inside of Trello, which once again, the Trello board we'd use for every program or every major anything that we're gonna get started up, right? We spend so much time on that it's sometimes I go outside of the lines, but it's rare.
Yeah.
I have to like really see something to be like, yo, what if? Right. But
Okay.
normally it's not, because we spend, the most important portion, right? And I forgot who said this, but this is something I think is something that I take very serious. I think it might have been Einstein. I'm not sure if I mess up the quote. Don't kill me. But I think the main thing he said was, if I had a minute to figure out a problem where I would die, I would spend the first 55 seconds thinking of the correct question to ask.
That was Lincoln.
Right? Oh yeah, I was way off then. I was way off.
Yeah, you
But
see,
but
if I had 10 minutes to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 8 minutes sharpening my tool, something to that effect.
sharpening the tool, right? So it's like, so that portion, we spend a lot of time in that phase, right? Not too much where we get paralyzed and we stay there,
Right.
but we spend just enough time, so we give ourselves the appropriate time. So like, let's say for instance, we're not going to give 6 months, we're going to give a week, and if it's not figured out in a week, then we're going to push with the plan that we have. So we better get these ideas on the table in a week, because if it's not, then we're going with the basics until we figure it out. And that's one of those things where he and I are both simplistic in a lot of ways, and the trust has been built over so many years that if he says something with conviction, I don't even quite like. Nah, cool. Like, I mean, who am I to question it, knowing that he's never proven himself to be incorrect in these situations? And even if he is incorrect, it's okay. We'll face it together, because he's always proven to be correct. Similar to my situation with him is like, I'm always on top of our finances. So it's like, okay, well, he said that, so I guess that's how it's going to go. And if I make a mistake, then it's like, well, he's correct 98% of the time. I'm not going to hold that against him.
Right.
And I think that's where people mess up at, is not having that trust and not spending time up front to make sure that the plan is in place before you even start the process.
Right.
Understood. Got you. All right. So you was going through your framework, Tellers. I think.
Oh
we
yeah,
was-
yeah. So that first pillar, like I was saying, having that goal, having and establishing the goals and outcomes that you expect to achieve, and then kind of, ensuring all the things we just discussed, ensuring that that happens the way that you actually plan. But then that second thing that I really, really focus on in the pillars of execution is you have to establish your overall intent and guidelines, basically your framework. That's something that I learned in the Marine Corps, so I'll give some credit there. But establishing intent was very key, especially when you're in a leadership role at the officer level and you have about 40 or 50 Marines under your charge. Your intent has to be clear, right? And then once you establish your intent, you just get out of the way. And and that sounds kind of crazy a little bit. It's like, why would you just then get out of the way? It's like you have to give people the opportunity for ingenuity to improvise, right? And one thing is it's a phrase Andre coins: the best idea always wins. And you won't be able to get the ideas if you don't allow people the opportunity to make mistakes. So that's why establishing intent. So and building that framework allows that, because you at a level of execution, and I'm speaking from the standpoint of having people on your team, having staff. Now, this also can apply if you're trying to execute a task as an individual, because there's self accountability as well, and there's things that you can do in terms of that. But right now, I'm speaking from the execution standpoint of having a goal to meet with staff, because
Gotcha.
that's the level that we normally are at when we trying to do something. But you want to establish your intent and your overall goal in the framework, and then allow the people to execute the tasks on your behalf, given that framework. And I just found that works the best, because, for example, if I ask you to, build a pyramid, I'm not going to say, in order to build a pyramid, you got to go pick up the rock, you got to place it on the stone, then you got to rub the mud on top, then you got to put another rock on top. I'm just going to say, no, I want a pyramid built.
Here's your time frame.
Yeah.
Here's when I want it done, and here's when I want my updates.
Right. And then however they get it done, that's on them, as
Right.
long as the plan is executed. But they have to then operate within the intent and the guideline and the framework that I
That
provide.
you put in place. Got you.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of like my second pillar that I like have to focus on when I'm trying to figure out the best way to have flawless execution, like I call it, because you know, you got to think big when it comes to these things. The third thing I really like to focus on when going through executing is establishing KPIs or key performance measurements or metrics. And when I say KPIs, I'm talking about key performance indicators. So we have to know that what we're doing is correct, right? And we have to know how to measure that success along the way. The success isn't always just going to be getting to the end goal, right? What's happening along the way? What milestones am I reaching along the way to let me know or give me those dopamine hits I need to continue, right? Because as you progress and you solve different strategies or different tasks that are needed to get to the end goal, it starts to give you the confidence and the self reliability and the self reliance to continue. So that's why we established the phase plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because how exciting is to get into phase 2, knowing that you just exceeded and achieved a huge milestone in phase 1,
Right.
right? So you have to break it down in those phases. That way, you establish the key performance indicators or measurable and obtainable goals that you accomplish along the way, so you can just feel good to continue. So we always want to make sure we build that in, because that's important. Those dopamine hits give us the ability to continue, give us the self motivation that we need to actually get it done.
And it's okay to celebrate those wins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about just now is just that a lot of people get those dopamine hits from just planning and never doing anything, or talking about their plans or what they plan to do.
Yeah.
But it's a way better feeling of actually like chopping something down like piece by piece, in my opinion. And I feel like if more people chase that dopamine hit, chase that high, I feel like way more would get done.
Absolutely.
So that's actually like a pandemic in and of itself right now, where people are flocking to social media, and it's like, hey, I'm getting ready to write my book.
Oh my God.
And then it's like, oh, congrats, but they haven't done anything.
You haven't done
But
anything. Oh
but
my
you got
God.
the feeling, you got the feeling as though you have,
Right.
right? Which is like, then it's like, where's your motivation? Because you've already received the feeling.
Like
Now
literally,
you don't even have to do it.
your brain is tricking us. Your brain is tricking you into think you did it already. I talk to people about that all the time, especially when it comes to writing a book. You know what I'm saying? Because I struggled with trying to write a book for years until I just had to just do it, and then along the way of doing it, I realized all the mistakes I made. I was like, okay, if I would have went about it this way, I probably could have got this goal done way faster. You know what I mean? So when I tell people, again, we're coming to the new year and resolution time, and I'm going to lose this amount of weight. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do this. It feels amazing to talk about it, and just as good to like go on the couch, you know, and or plan or write your outline or something. But chasing that other high, that other piece of actually getting something done, way more rewarding, in my opinion.
Way more rewarding.
Absolutely, and you need that because everybody's not built with the ability to just have self motivation. Sometimes you need that dopamine hit to get you over the next level. So I thought that was a good point. You know, in terms of like, you know, let me announce the announcement of the announcement, and then you know you just never get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then but to getting back, so we talked about establishing goals, giving your intent, your framework, and then going over key performance indicators or breaking it down in phases so you have a way to measure success along the way. The fourth thing that we like to focus on is accountability. If you don't have accountability, success is literally impossible, right? So how does that look? You know, but when you break something down in phases and you establish specific timelines, and if those timelines aren't met, now you have something to give corrective action on. But if you never establish that, right, or if you never have anything in place, then how do you know if you're doing well? How do you know if you're not going well? How do you even know if you're on track? Right. So it's a key to have those things in place, and that way you can have systems of accountability. And for us, that accountability is like, you know, hey, you're supposed to be done this portion of it by Saturday. It's not done. So guess what we're doing? We're allowed to log 24 hours to 48 hours until it gets done. Right? You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
no option. There's no option of failure. And once again, that kind of ties back to mindset because, you know, failure is not an option.
Right.
Right. And if you have that mindset, then you have the ability to have the accountability fact where one, you don't want to let each other down, whether it be your partner, whether it be the people working for you. You don't want to let anyone down. So that accountability or that chain of accountability or that cascading chain of accountability is what you need to be able to succeed.
A lot of people don't. They look at accountability almost as though it's confrontational. Right? That's one of the things I've noticed, and one of the things that's been cool about us working together is we look for every opportunity to hold each other accountable because we're both type A competitors.
Yeah.
Right? Just type A competitors. So you've heard me joke about it before, but it's like if I get into the office at 6:30 and he gets in at 8 and I'm like, yeah, bro, I've been here for an hour and a half, no biggie. Right? And it's like, and then he'll go in the office, he'll close the door, and you hear like, like, but that's the point. And it's not like to be malicious or anything like that. We've clearly known each other and we know each other's quirks. So like when he's trying to get me in mode, he puts a challenge in front of me and questions like my intelligence. Right? It's like, well, I mean, Andre, I know could figure this out. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean I can't figure it out? And it's like, similar to him, it's like, well, people said it takes 7 months to do this. So I guess it's going to take 7 months. But now it's like, oh no, screw that. It's 90 days. And I'm like, all right, cool. But we know how to kind of drive each other in a healthy way. But a part of that is the fact that we're very comfortable with accountability. Accountability shouldn't be a negative. It shouldn't be looked at as confrontation. It should be looked at as, hey man, we're a little bit off course. We need to get back on course. Right. All right, cool. Yeah, I figured out we're off course. You're right. Let's get back on course and let's figure this out. So I think a lot of people mistake that.
Yeah.
And end up being detrimental to themselves or detrimental to their company because of
Yo,
that.
funny thing because I work with my family, like so my partners are my pops, my stepmom. So accountability there, I had to like really deprogram myself because I'm talking to my dad. I have
Mm.
utmost respect for my dad, but
Mhm.
you said you were supposed to do this, so I have to like check you for you to actually feel some type of accountability. So I had to like really kind of deprogram myself. And he let me know like, yo, when we ain't working, I'm your partner. I'm not your dad. So talk to me how you would talk to somebody else that needed to get something done that didn't get it done. You know what I mean? And that's changed the dynamic of everything on how we do, how we work. Like we've been working on a project right now. It was a 30-day countdown. Now it's like, 20-day countdown to where we launch. And I was on everybody's ass yesterday. Like, yo, what's up? Like, we stayed in this office until it was done. You feel me? So, I completely agree.
No, that's dope, and that's beautiful. By the way, having the ability to work with your family. Not everybody can do that. Hopefully I didn't mention it earlier. I do have two kids. My son is 14. My daughter's 11. And I think being able to do something like that as a family unit one day will be pretty dope. So I don't think I've ever mentioned that to you, but that I like that. That's really
Thank you,
good.
thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to, groom. I'm trying to like my pops is like grooming me so when my son is of age, I can instill that wisdom in him as well. So yeah,
You know
so
what's dope for you, bro, that I'm excited for is, so obviously I'm like an uncle to his kids, just like I'm the uncle to Noble. But like over the years, I've got to watch his kids grow,
Mm.
right? And watch them, progress into young men and young women. And it's dope to see because they come to the office, they come to our businesses, they come to everything, and their natural instinct has changed. Like before, it was like, hey, dad is working on businesses. Can we work on businesses too? And like it was like they were trying to pitch ideas together and they were like writing out their business plans and doing things. And it's really mirror their parents. Right. So I thought that was pretty dope because, I hope to have kids one day and I hope to have a family. So I look to him in a lot of ways and I watch and I observe like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. And I think that's dope because, when Noble gets of age, his natural instinct is going to be like, okay, what's my pops doing?
right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, can I set up the equipment? Yeah, like this is how you do it. Like, and that's where that apprenticeship comes in because I know we mentioned that before.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so kind of veering back to your original question. So I was talking through our five pillars of execution. We talked about number one being establishing goals and backwards planning as a beginning point, and then establishing your overall intent as the second one. Then we rolled into establishing performance metrics or key performance indicators so we can get those dopamine hits along the way, and then we rolled into accountability, how important that is, so you can make sure you're staying on course and staying on track. And the last thing, which I think is not necessarily the most important, but it's something that I think is really important, is you have to never marry your plan, right? Never marry your plan. Now that kind of sounds contradicting to what we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But when I say never marry your plan, what I'm speaking on is being flexible or having the ability or willingness to change. Right? It does no one no good if something isn't working because we aren't perfect. You can spend all day writing up the plan, putting the X and O's, and as you get into it, it's not going the way you want it to go. And some
Right.
people are too stubborn to realize that, and it's like, oh no, this it's I created this, it has to work, and then all of a sudden they're leading themselves to a burning building or
Right.
trying to, you know what I mean? So you have to have the ability to be flexible. And in the Marine Corps, it's funny, we call it Semper Gumby, always flexible. So those are some of the things that I think is really important because you have to be willing and okay with change. In the reality, it's okay, right? As long as the intent is still met, the goal isn't unreachable at this point now because of the change, then make the change. But success is never in a straight line. It's always going to be up and down, and it just kind of depends on how tight you are in the planning phase to where maybe this thing doesn't come up and you don't have to change anything.
Right.
But something we all know, you do the perfect plan, and then as soon as you step out of the car, it's not good,
Right.
right? And it's okay. So never being married to the plan is one of the last phases of execution, because I'll highlight. I know we talked about the restaurant, but I'll bring that up again. As we was going through that 90-day tight timeline, there was lots of opportunities, or a lots of things that came up where we had to pivot.
Mm.
Hey, I think we need to go in a different direction. It's not working. But does that mean we didn't get to the 90-day goal? We absolutely did. That wasn't the option, because failure wasn't an option.
Right.
But we were okay with change. And when you build a plan, that's something that's super important, is being okay with change, and never marrying the plan. Yeah.
So one of the things we always mention is like we say that, but another term we use is pivot, right?
Oh yeah.
We pivot all the time. We're ready to pivot at all times. So like building the restaurant, one of the most detrimental days, bro, is we came into this place, looks phenomenal, great show, has all of the equipment in the back. We're like, yo, this is good to go. We get all of our stuff ready. We're rolling. And something just said, you know what? A part of it, let's just throw in another inspection. The initial one felt a little off. Let's call somebody else. Let's do another inspection. I don't know why we wanted to, but we just got somebody in.
Yeah.
98% of the machines don't work, or had a lifespan that was within a month or two. So even though it was working, in a month or two, we would have had a bigger problem. So it's better to start fresh than wait that month or two. Like that's the biggest wrench off. We didn't even budget money for equipment, right? But normally, let's just get the warranty rolling. Let's get it fixed. But it's like, no, this is a big problem. We have to pivot. The original plan said we were going to do this with the budget. Unfortunately, the budget has to be up now. We have to pull back from decorations or how this place looks. This is more important. Being able to feed people than exactly like the masterful look that we're going, and the masterful look can wait. Right. So it's coming into it, understanding that it's okay to pivot. That's not a bad thing. Pivoting does not mean you're less than. Pivoted does not mean you're not smart. It means that you're wise enough to understand that the issue at hand is bigger than your time frame or your money or your budget will allow for, and you need to get a fix that is within your wheelhouse at this time. Right. So it's been a dope journey to kind of see that, because these are principles that we stand on.
Right.
We mention these things inside, and they're not like arbitrary things, right? He and I stand on these principles so much that we quote each other deeply, right? Inside of our wall in our office, because one of the things is he and I work together so much that we decided to share an office, right? Instead of like, there's multiple offices in the building, but we just decided to share an office because we need to communicate, right? But inside of the wall between us, right, there's a quote that's just the premise of the quote is, there's always a yes behind a no. No is not an option. Therefore, we're going to continue to progress forward. It's just, no is just not an option, right? So coming into it with that mindset of the goal is to get a yes, not for it to be correct the first time. It's completely different from, it has to be my idea that works. No, an idea just needs to work. Whether it's yours, somebody else's, whether it's the janitor in the building that comes to us and hooks us up with a phenomenal idea, and we say thank you and we appreciate that, and we're going to use it, right? Which is something that comes, later on down the line, is our employees really appreciate that, being able to bring their ideas, and no matter who you are, you can get a sit down with us. If you think your idea is good, you got to stand on it and you got to pitch it. But if it's good, it'll get implemented immediately.
Absolutely.
Got you. Listen, man. Anytime we do an episode, I just want people to kind of take these little nuggets and apply it to whatever they're doing, whatever business you're running. You run a lemonade stand, just try to implement some piece of what we're talking about, because I do think it's valuable. I think execution is like without it, you don't have a business. Without it, nothing moves. And not even in business, just in anything. Like you said, you talked about waking up, brushing teeth, making your bed, and things like that. Without you being able to follow through and execute, what do you have? You know what I mean? So I do think that is extremely, extremely important. Andre, do you have anything else to add to the concept of execution and I guess I don't know, anything else?
So I will say this, right? I'll leave them on this. This is something that when you're making the plan, people plan so the overall goal can be huge, right? But the tasks themselves need to be extremely bite-sized, right? It can't be vague, right? That's where I think that's something that we left out, right? It can't be a vague plan. So it can't be phase one, get admin work done. Like that, that doesn't like what is admin work?
I
So
have,
now you're.
I have two examples to that, but go ahead. I'm gonna let you
So
finish.
so like
Yeah.
what is admin work? What is marketing? What is design? Right? So that needs to then be boiled down to, on Monday, Andre, we need the operating agreement. Right? That's the task. Right? So I've broken down admin into 70 executable steps. So even though admin is a step, admin gets 70 executable steps inside of it. And my goal is to burn through those little tasks because we talk about the dopamine hits and we talk about speed and momentum, right? You do one thing where it's like, hey, send designer, email with concept, right? That's such a simple task, but you do that and it's like, okay, dang. All right, well, I already sent that task is done. What's next? And now you burn through those 70 tasks and holding each other accountable. It's like, yo, bro, you were supposed to do 25 tasks yesterday. You didn't do them. Oh, my fault. And I'll never forget this, right? I'll give this as an example, right? And this is what we mean. And I'm not promoting, turning over your work-life balance or not, but there needs to be accountability, right? So he had to go out of town. This was a couple years ago, right? I was in the movie theater, right? I'm watching a movie, and he's like, "Yo, bro, we promised the client that we'd be there at 1. Unfortunately, I forgot I had to go out of town. I need you to be there." And I'm like, "Yo, I'm in the theater. I'm annoyed. I just be completely honest. I'm annoyed. I'm like, oh, I'm in the theater. I'm X. I just sat down. I just got the popcorn, and I'm very nerdy, so I think it was like an Avengers movie or something like that I was watching. And I'm like, yo, I've been waiting forever to watch this. And he's like, I feel you. I understand that you're upset. That doesn't change the fact that the mission needs to get done. That was gangster as hell. I was very annoyed, but I thought that was so dope. And for me, that was the first step of understanding that in order to attain a goal, the mission needs to come first. And then when you execute the mission, now you can go sit and now you can go enjoy your time. But that means we got to execute the mission in 1 week if you want a week off. Because if we wait 3 months, then I guess you're not going to be doing anything for 3 months. So I thought that was dope. That was one of my most vivid memories of him, he and I, when we were really starting to build our relationship together. And I was like, all right, that's a real stand-up thing to say because that's something I would have said.
Right.
Like, I don't care what you're doing, bro.
Facts. Like
we're trying to
it's
build
not gonna change. It's not gonna change the fact. It needs to get done.
So I'd leave with that, on that note.
Now I wanted to add to like the bite-sized pieces, right? So going back to me writing my book. So I remember I had a writing goal of 50,000 words, right? I had never written anything close to that. Even in college, like if something was like a 10-page paper, like you might get 5. That's like double space. You get like 5,000 words. That's not a lot. You know what I'm saying? So 50,000 words. I was like, I never written anything close to that. But instead of looking at the big goal, what I did was, and I recommend anybody else do this, is I broke down every chapter in its own separate Word file or Word doc. You get what I'm saying? So every single chapter, like when I interview you, Dre, when I interview somebody, I completely wrote it in its own Word file. And then that's me knocking down. And I think I had a smaller word count for each one of those chapters, but it was way easier to see that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I can do 5,000 words right here. You know what I'm saying? I can do 5,000 here. I can do, and then every chapter that by the time I was done, I combined all of them. I got to like 48,000. You know what I mean? And I just had to like knock out the conclusion and things like that. So that's one example. Another one that just happened yesterday, right? We completing our project, and I have my Trello board. We completed something, but On one of the tasks, I combined like 4 tasks in one, and I was just like, this don't look right. And because I in those 4, I probably got like 2 out of those 4 done, and I couldn't hit complete on that one. So I was like, I got to do this. I got to, like, fix this task in the Trello board and stuff like that. So that's another example of like breaking everything down to its smallest piece. You know what I mean? Because I lumped one whole thing together, and I was just like, okay, this doesn't work for where we even at. You know what I'm saying? In the phases, just like Tellers was talking about. You know what I mean?
And these things work. I want to express these things work.
They do.
These are things that you utilize. These are things that we do. I even on the board back here, we're working with a client right now and organizing all of their tasks inside of their business. And we wrote out, I think it's like 70 steps in their business that we're like, yo, you can slash 98% of this can be done on automation. Right? Like we really do the planning and we really organize the planning. Like these things work. And that's something we'll talk about on another show of value stream analysis and trying to streamline businesses and put them on autopilot.
With that.
But like these things are real. These are real tools. I'm at the point now where I want to give back and I'm trying to give back. Right? No one helped us with this stuff. A lot of this we really learned in blood, or we learned our principles and discipline from the Marine Corps. Right? That was our basis. But other than that, business-wise, we've just been out here shot in the dark, figuring it out with bruised knees and scraped elbow. It's really bad. So now we're in a predicament to give back. I'm asking you guys to just really implement these things. Just do 90 days. You don't even have to do 100 and whatever, or a year or 2. Just do 90 days, and I guarantee you that your performance level will be so high, the results will be so high that you start looking back like, oh wow, that's just 90 days. What if I dedicated 10 years?
Right.
To this?
Right.
So yeah, man, that's all I got.
So, guys, with that being said, this has been the Real Revenue Show. I'm Malcolm. This is Andre, and this is Tellers. Their information will be in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening, don't forget to leave us a rating and a comment. We would really appreciate it. And yeah, peace.
Peace.